You know what time it is, Stephanie?
What time is it?
It's showtime. I bet you guys thought that was the intro, right? That was old school. Here's the new school. That's Stephanie and all her dramatization. I want to give everybody a little remix today. To be a little spicy. Go ahead, Stephanie, do your thing.
Love it, love it, love it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I am so happy to be here with everybody today, especially John and Will. This is so exciting. Julia is she was cast in Broadway. Like I can't believe it. She's turning 19 this week. But she is cast in Broadway, and so she will be joining us here and there, but very exciting. But I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, Broadway, little interesting spelling, John. I love your spelling. It's just awesome. You know, it's you're gonna rewrite the dictionary one day.
No, it's so funny. I have a bunch of things that I do. And I love when I just randomly type things in there and I see it spelled wrong before I press it. I'm like, you know what? Let's see who notices.
You used to do that all the time. And I'm like, why is nobody's noticing this? And then I have to go check because I'm like, maybe I'm remembering the word wrong. You never know. That could be true.
Oh man, that's hilarious. What do we do? What are we doing over there? It's so spicy today.
So today I thought that it would be a really good idea to kind of follow up with gunfights in movies. They've been around since the beginning of time, from the gunfights in the Old West to the gunfight in Top Gun 2, which is now showing. And so it kind of shows the character of the actor's portrayal, his emotions or her emotions and things like that. And Top Gun really depicts that well. So I wanted to start with planes and gunfights. And what do you guys think? So I was thinking specifically of just being in the plane, because we've all been on planes, but think of like when you just go up in like a Boeing 767 and your ears are popping. Now just add like that craziness, and you guys both have more familiarity with small planes, right? John, you being in the military.
Just the fact that you're talking about gunfights in vehicles, whether it's flying, like for instance, when I was in the military, my first job was Avenger crew member. It's a Humvee truck with a turret on the back. It's got 8 Stinger missiles and it's got a 50 cal, and just the pressure of trying to hit something with the 50 cal and a turret that rotates. I can't imagine trying to shoot rounds out of a jet going 7, 8, 6, and all of that. That is just incredible. Incredible skill. It's an incredible skill set.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was watching them try to, and they were such good actors in these scenes, because as you know, they're not really going through that training, and they were imagining that they had to make those short turns and all of that in the short period of time, and the death like looming over. That just really changed my whole way of thinking about what life was like during wartime, and just the weight of it that they have on their shoulders.
Well, the intensity of knowing that I'm about to press this button that could possibly end someone, you
Yeah.
know, that being able to stay cool, calm, and collective in that manner is not an easy thing. More people who think they couldn't do it, you'd be surprised at what you can do or what you will do when you have to, you know.
I love that. Yeah,
And
and that was kind of the message of that movie that I really loved, is pushing the envelope and challenging people to step up. And the whole world could really take this message away, because we could all challenge ourselves with that self-doubt and kind of overcome it. So yeah, and Will saw the movie a couple of times.
a couple. 900 to be exact.
I was like living in the theater for a week there. Like the guy at the now a lot of theaters have like a bar in there. You can go get a drink and a hot dog and popcorn. Well,
I'm coming to your town.
The kid's name was Tyler, and after a while he was just like, "Hey, Will," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I've been
here." Well, you're the only person that goes in the movie theater and they go, large Coke, 2 hot dogs, and a popcorn. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, all right, well, he's here.
That is too.
John, I want to piggyback off of something that you mentioned, and it's kind of one of my favorite things about aerial combat, which is leading and trailing the target. So we'll do a quick little game. My hand is an enemy plane. Okay, and here's you, Stephanie. You're in the gun plane. You're about to light. So if we're flying, okay, and you're chasing this guy, when you start firing at him and you're in your dogfight, you either going to have to lead or trail him as a target. So either your rounds, you're going to be following him, and your rounds are going to be coming up short.
Yeah.
So you're trailing. You're behind. So you're going to have to see where that crossing point is and see how you can get closer to leading that target. So by the time your rounds intersect his path, you get a hit on target. So it's not like bullets fly straight and you never run out of ammo like Hollywood teaches us.
Yeah.
You have only a few chances to get that right. And then your barrels are either hot and less accurate, you're out of ammo, or you've given away your position so much, because if there's another pilot behind you, that guy can now use your attempts at hitting his partner to better gauge your distance and your speed. And then that data is going to turn into a hit for him. So like John said, fighting in vehicles, there's so much more physics and unknowns that you just kind of have to gamble and go by. It's intuitive and instinctive, and not everyone's wired to behave that way and master that technique. So it is so complex.
And he's not even factoring in. I mean, Will would factor it in, but and then you got the guessing game aspect. If you lead right and they bank left, you're also trying to guess that opponent. And it's not like you've been dogfighting for an hour and you can kind of pick up their habits, right? You don't get an hour. You don't get a whole football game to figure out the person's tactics.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're G'ing out, you're losing your ability to like maintain strength. You're just like, it's got to be so exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that confined window, that claustrophobic window that they sit in. And I'm thinking, like I mentioned, the turret that I was in, I've got this much space in my turret. They've got this much space. Right. And I was feeling claustrophobic in my turret,
Sure.
That's sitting still, not going anywhere.
Right.
Crazy. Yeah, that is just definitely makes you step up and shows you who you are. Yeah. It's amazing. And it's I love that these movies are kind of showing real life and what's going on in because some people, there's always this debate, guns or no guns, but Yeah, go ahead.
What
Sorry.
what does that mean? Like guns or no guns in movies?
So yeah, well, but that is history, right? This is what's going on in the world. This is the way, I'm personally like I am kind of like against guns and things like that, but at the same time, I have a lot of respect for the use in battle and military and all of that. And I love when I'm watching, that was what was blowing my mind. Like, this was a necessary mission that had to happen to save us. And we can't just stand by and go like that. You can't do that. Like, somebody has to go do that. It reminds me of the Chernobyl. Did you guys ever know about the Chernobyl explosion when the guys went in and they knew that they were going to die, but they had to kind of,
mitigate what was happening.
Yeah. So
I'm not pro or against guns. I'm indifferent. I'm for gun responsibility. If you want to have a gun, have a gun. Have it.
Yes.
But taking a gun out of a movie, you'd have to take out everything. You've got to take out cursing. You've got to take out sex. You've got to take out everything.
I agree.
The question I want to ask both of you is, do you like realistic gun battles over non-realistic? And what I mean realistic gun battles such as Tombstone, that it's more realistic, but then I love stuff like Wanted. They're doing this and curving the bullet and doing things like that. Do you love them equally the same, or do you prefer one over the other?
I want to hear Stephanie's answer first.
I don't know. I kind of like, I feel safer if I'm watching an unrealistic battle. Whenever I'm watching even a movie about any kind of death, if it's kind of like realistic, that makes me more uncomfortable than, if I know it's fake. It's like watching a horror where like this is fake horror, like a Michael Myers or something like that.
Ghost versus Godzilla. Yeah.
Versus like when people, like when there's like a family abduction or something like that, where you can imagine, oh my God, like I'm a mom, what would I do? And where I can envision this actually happening. I mean, not that Michael Myers can happen, I guess, but it's like not as realistic, those situations and scenarios. So, so it makes me more uncomfortable to watch the realism. So
I got you. Yeah. You're not saying it's bad. You're more entertained by the fantasy aspect and watching like things that could actually.
I'm gonna feel safer. I'm gonna feel like that's what Top Gun 2 kind of definitely brought home realism. So I definitely was like, emotional. I'm moving in my seat. I'm like, it brought me to a place which I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. So, I definitely enjoyed it, and I love that emotional roller coaster. So I would just say that they're different. I can't say one over the other. Sorry.
You will.
Fair. So, well, I'd like to kind of sum it up in regards to the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is more often than not a good guy with a gun.
Mm. In the movies, people. In the movies.
Yeah. John, I like a little bit of both. Sometimes I don't want to think about the realism. I want to just be taken off my couch and immersed into something so ridiculous that I just smile or, find myself going, this is out of control, but all right, I'm going to finish this movie. Like, whatever, man. That's not what bullets don't curve, but in this movie they do. So I'm going to buy into it. Right. And then there's other times where like an American Sniper, where they show legitimate doping of the rifle and how difficult it is to place around a precision shot at such a great distance, factoring in all the elements that are going to ruin that shot for you. Like that, talk about management. That is like a beautiful way to connect with nature, to be honest, is to understand how it works. And precision shooters, snipers, marksmen, they are connected to nature at a level that most human beings will never comprehend. So I think that is, it's an art. And I would argue about that any day.
Yeah.
So I like both. I'm a 50-50. I'll take Starship Troopers or Tombstone. Doc Holliday, oh my God.
I just watched that show this weekend, that movie this weekend again. First of all, I was at a friend's house in South Dakota, and there was a magazine that had the top 10 Western miniseries, the top 10 Western TV shows. I agreed with that list because they had Bonanza and Gunsmoke at 1 and 2. So smart magazine. But then they had the top 10 Western movies, and Tombstone wasn't in it. I threw the magazine down. I'm like,
Agreed. Are you top 10 and Tombstone's not in there?
I'm like that. I cannot. You've lost all credibility with me.
I want to email whoever made that list.
There's no.
That's it. They're in trouble now.
There's no Doc Holliday line that I do not know.
In that smoke wagon is something that I say like every day almost.
Yes.
In some way, some form.
I think the 2 lines from him I love is, "Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like someone just walked over your grave." And when he said, "You're probably seeing double," he said, "I got one for the both of you."
Yeah.
I like that. I love it.
Yeah, he's
awesome.
He's not Val Kilmer to me. That I know he's done some great movies. To me, that's his best performance for me. And his second best performance is the movie we're talking about, Top Gun 2. How do you not have a line and still the scene?
He is so good, so powerful,
and he was really going through throat
cancer. Yeah, that was crazy.
It made me sad because I knew he was going through it. And so that made me sad because I knew he was going through it in real life.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's his current health status.
Yeah. That was his current
health status. Oh, my goodness. And another reason to cry in this movie.
Right. And the fact that Penny was mentioned in the original Top Gun. Did you remember that?
Yes.
People thought that was some love interest they just bought in for the movie. I was like, no, she was mentioned in Top Gun 1, the Admiral's daughter or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Wow. I did not know that. Okay. I have a question for both of you, since I don't know the answer to this. Can bullets really go through, because we always see this in movies, can bullets really go through water? Is that like a safe? Should I jump in the water if someone's shooting at me?
Well, no. They'll go. Well, Will is the expert, and I'll tell you from what I know. Yeah, bullets can go through water. They only travel so far. Remember when they do ballistics tests, they shoot it in a tank of water.
Right. Yes,
you don't need it to go through the floor of every office in the building. But just like with anything that hits water, the speed of which it travels determines how fast, the speed, the shape, all of that determines how far it will go through the water. Are you safer in water than you're on land? Well, that's debatable because I can move faster on land than I can on water. So if I had to dodge a bullet, which I couldn't anyway, I'd rather dodge it on land than I would to try to dodge it in water.
Gotcha.
Get away from a bullet. How far off am I wrong with that, Will?
You're not far off at all. So I'll disclose some information. I maybe like knew a guy that kind of played with like, shooting into a swimming pool to see what would happen. I don't talk to him anymore, but
no, I wouldn't have guessed that.
So what it came down to was the type of round, and John, like you said too, like the speed. So I played with some different loads of 9mm. Some were full metal jacket, FMJ. Some were TMJs, total metal jacket. Some were steel core. Some were hollow points. Like a defense round or a range round. And like you'd said, depending on how it hits the water, even at the angle and the distance as well, sometimes that kinetic energy takes place a little bit further away than it does right away. But the weight of the round and the speed, there's like a formula there. Rifle rounds are amazing at cutting into water. Pistol calibers are very deficient. So they kind of just like yaw and take off. And I'd say you're probably kind of safe if you're hiding in the bottom of a swimming pool and someone's shooting at you with a 9mm. I mean, it's going to scare you, and they could get lucky. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't pick that as my first place to hide unless that water is really dark or you have some like amazing, cloaking suit on. But that's why gel is used more for ballistic tests, because you need to see how that round expands and where those little tiny pieces of metal go. All it takes is a fragment to ruin your day. You don't have to get hit by the entire bullet. A small piece going 1,000 feet per second is going to change things. Yeah. So, I don't know what happened to that guy. Last I heard, like he doesn't do that anymore. But
love
the data that came from it.
I don't know if you saw the better version of Suicide Squad. That abomination that was before, but I love the bullet going through the bullet. So they had the bullet that drilled through the other bullet when the two bullets met.
Right.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
What was your reaction when you saw that?
I was like, oh, come on. All right, I want to see it again.
Could happen. Anything could happen, right?
Right? It's imagination. I mean, that I live to use my imagination. Reality's every day, but how often do you get a chance to just kind of like get outside of your head? We're always in our heads and thinking about responsibilities. It's so much more fun to just let all that go for an hour and a half.
Right? Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like get. I love to be outside of reality. I wish. It seems like the comedies are going away on network television. They do more dramas now.
Yeah.
That's why I watch a lot of middle school comedies. But I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, right? And you know how some people are out there. When they came out with the TV show, there was a bunch of people commenting on YouTube. They were upset because there was a black elf. They're like, but the elves are, and I'm like, guys, so we have dragons, talking trees, dwarves, and wizards, but where we draw the line is a black elf. That's where we draw. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah, it's a sensitive world today. It's not the world I grew up in. I'm older than both of you. It's not the world I grew up in.
Well, I think the world, because I comment on this a lot, I don't think the world is more sensitive. I just think people are allowed to voice their opinions more. Back then, you had to hold everything in and keep it here, especially guys. You had to keep, like Bill Burr always talks about, keep it here, and it just festers.
That's true. That's not good either. Yeah.
But I love this topic, especially with gunfights. So what's your favorite gunfight in a movie, Stephanie?
So, well, I mean, right now it's going to be what I was just talking about, Top Gun. But I also wanted to talk about Broadway, and some Broadway shows were made into movies like Hamilton. There was a Broadway show here, Perfect Crime, that was like the longest running. It was like an off-Broadway show, and I remember dragging my son with me. We were in the city. We just like got tickets last minute on, and what can you get last minute? So it was an off-Broadway, and it's Perfect Crime, and it was, like I said, the longest running show, but they had a gunshot with a gun that looked really very real. It was a small gun. I guess you guys probably could figure out what it was, but it was so incredibly loud in the theater that my son got very kind of like, he thought it was real. And I'm like, no, it's not real. You can't have a real gunshot in a play in the middle of New York City. And that was before, all of this kind of awareness and sensitivity around guns. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, it's not real. There's no way anything could really happen. And then there's West Side Story that was also made into a movie where there's guns and fighting. Chicago, Annie Get Your Gun, and Oklahoma. These are all, still on, some of them still on Broadway. And so my favorite is still Top Gun right now, even though that's like, I don't know if that will change.
I think
I agree.
My favorite gunfights is every John Wick movie.
Right? Oh, I totally forgot about John Wick. How could I forget?
Oh my God.
I became obsessed. I cannot believe how good Keanu Reeves was, because I remember watching him in that beach movie. I don't remember the name of it. Remember?
Break.
Yes.
Keanu Reeves is the same. I love Keanu Reeves, but when I coach acting classes, I hate that I say this, but I have to. I said, everyone, you don't want to be Keanu Reeves and Terrence Howard. You want their career.
Yes.
You don't want to be them. And they get confused. I said, why? They go, why? I said, well, because they've made success of playing the same guy in every movie.
In every movie.
You wouldn't want that, though. Just be you, and someone's going to pay you all that much money.
The only time Keanu Reeves wasn't Keanu Reeves, I think, was Bill and Ted.
That's true.
Oh,
that is true.
Stephanie, you brought up a really good point. John, I know this was something that you've experienced if you're in the military. So if you've never been around gunfire without ear protection,
Oh,
you'll let that happen once. Being around a discharged weapon without protecting your ears is the most crucial of pains out there that you have no chance to really like suppress or save. Like it's happens so fast, and the concussion from it could be crippling depending on the firearm or the the artillery that's used without you being prepared for it. That's something Hollywood never shows really. And I will have to say my favorite both gunfights and gun handling that I recently saw. Have either one of you seen Terminal List?
Yes, I did see Terminal
With
List.
Chris Pratt. I counted 6 chamber check mag checks in the first episode, and I was like, that's it. I'm shutting down the house. I'm going to watch this thoroughly. I mean, I gave the cat like wet food so that she would leave me alone, and I just wanted to focus on that movie because Chris Pratt and the training he went through for that series is so amazing. No one chamber check mag checks. And Stephanie, a chamber check mag check is ensuring that your weapon is ready to go to work. You check the chamber and you check the magazine because that's all you got. If that chamber's not loaded with a hot round and that bolt's not closed, that weapon's not going to fire. If that magazine's not functional and you can't index around and make sure that you're going to get retention back through the weapon, you're going to lose the gunfight because you're going to have a malfunction. That show expresses those fundamentals so well. I was blown away. I stayed up all night, which I do that every now and then.
I want to comment on your ear protection thing. They kind of do, and this is the funny thing, and I don't know if it's a mental thing, Will, or whatever, but anytime we were at the firing range qualifying, we have earplugs in, right? But anytime I fired my weapon when I was in Iraq, I didn't have earplugs in. At the gun range, it bothered me. In combat, it didn't. Right. I don't know what it is. Now, of course, I've got tinnitus now, but you don't think to put your earplugs in or when you're getting in a gunfight, and to talk about what you're talking about with Terminal List, I love going on YouTube and watching when they have like SEALs rating video games and other movies.
Those are fun.
Anytime I see someone in a movie or TV show go to breach a building or they're walking around with their gun like this, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because what happens when you see people doing this when they're clearing rooms is they're bringing their vision, their peripheral, their tunnel vision. You can't react to things going on outside of that tunnel. So, we walk like this. It's
low ready.
Oh, I always wanted to know that.
Yeah, reflex shooting. When I need to come up, it's up, bam, down.
Right.
Up, bam, down.
Wow.
We're not walking around doing this because you're not going to hit anything.
Right.
You're
someone's going to come out, grab that rifle, and now you're in a wrestling match for your primary, low ready always.
Well, that's a good thing that you brought up. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I know I'm talking too much.
No?
Because I always say that the good guy in the movie is a little ridiculous. They beat up like 90 people, right? But when you go back and look at it, it makes sense. Like when you watch a John Wick film or Equalizer, when they're fighting people and they grab their guns, it's always somebody doing this. And what do? They come around the corner, grab the gun, elbow the guy.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they don't have their techniques down. So it kind of makes sense. You're going against a bunch of amateurs or hired soldiers, and these guys are specialists, trained to de-arm and do whatever they got to do. And so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we want to know. I mean, us people like me that don't know anything about guns, we want to know, is that real? Is that how you would really hold a gun? Is that the interactions that would happen and how would people behave? So this is so interesting to me that you guys are kind of shedding light on behind the scenes and the truth and reality in it. I wanted to ask you about Rambo. What about Rambo?
I thought you said Rambo. I was like, wait, what's that? Is that the female version?
Yes. Rambo, Sylvester Stallone, when he like flips out, and he's first of all, he's like a knife. Bow and arrow, which I love. I can shoot a bow and arrow a little bit. But then he finally gets angry and
is that what we're calling it? I like how in First Blood, It took literally like an hour and 30 minutes for one person to finally die. And then in Rambo 2, within 72 seconds, 80 people are dead.
Right. So, Stephanie, I think you
Character arc.
hit the bullseye. And John, you had said it earlier. When you're calm and collected, what's the saying? Cooler heads
Prevail.
they prevail, right? So
Absolutely.
in First Blood, you learn that his character is not a violence seeking person. He's not looking for confrontation. He's very chill. He's trained, and he's a gifted athlete. He's in great shape. They show you that right away. You're looking at like a 5-star operator, but mentally he's so relaxed and so aware. Like John said, also like having that weapon at a low ready, you can see things. You're not going to accidentally torch a round off and hit a buddy because that muzzle control is embedded. But then when you need to, you're in, right? He shows us that in First Blood. And the melee techniques, using an edged weapon over a firearm, that's the way to go if you're good, because you're not leaving a sound report. You don't need ear protection to use a knife. You don't have to worry about over penetration and dealing with where that round could possibly go. You don't have to worry about malfunctions. A blade doesn't malfunction like a AR-15 will. And you can discreetly put that away and you look like a civilian who's picking up a pack of cigarettes. How are you going to hide a 16-inch barreled rifle?
I'd rather get shot than stabbed any day of the week.
Amen. Right? Exactly.
Interesting.
I would not want to deal with it.
Oh no, because most people who are shoot aren't good shots anyway. Even gun owners, they're not all good shots. It's
not easy.
Yeah, it's one thing to hit a deer that's sitting still, and another to hit someone who's moving and doing movements and doing buddy rushes and hiding behind. That's a whole different skill set. So everyone who can shoot thinks they're a shooter. That's not what that is. Okay, hunting and shooting is two different things.
Right.
Okay? Now, a person who's good with a knife, they know everywhere to hit you. And they're fast. A good knife wielder could stab you 14 times before anybody sees it. And walk away and disappear in the crowd like Will said.
The 21-foot rule, right? You could have a firearm, a pistol in a holster. Mm-hmm. If your adversary is 21 feet or closer with a knife, you're in trouble. Unless you have a 1.2 second draw, that person with the blade is going to get to you before you can get your gun out of the holster, let alone get on target and take up slack and torch one off. So
that test has been done so many times. They'll show somebody with a dummy and someone with a gun. And I forget where it is on YouTube, but the guy got in 32 stabs before that guy got off 6 rounds.
I believe it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Stephanie's like, okay, I'm done with.
Well, I have so much to say about that, but I want to stay because now you also made me think of James Bond.
Espionage, my favorite way. So, combat and
Wait! You can't say the words James Bond without saying who's your favorite James Bond.
Oh man.
Oh.
That's the thing that gets everybody.
You can't really say who.
I'm going to go with Sean Connery.
Okay, so this is how I get away from that answer, Will, because it's so hard for me to pick one. I always say I love Sean Connery because he was the original, right? He was the standard bearer. In terms of how James Bond acted, I love Roger Moore the best. And in terms of James Bond's evolution, Daniel Craig has that for me.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Pierce Brosnan was a good Bond. Timothy Dalton has the bad distinction of not being one of the best Bonds, but being in one of the best Bond movies, licensed.
Right. Pierce was really good. I did like Pierce a lot. Yeah, but good. I also liked him in Mrs. Doubtfire, so I think I have mixed emotions.
Yeah, they're all. I mean. Yeah, I would take Sean Connery though too, for sure.
Bond is very smooth. Again, Will was talking your point, Stephanie, about Bond. Will brought it up again. Cool, calm, and collective. But some people that doesn't work for. For instance, we just said Daniel Craig. He's better when he's hot-headed.
Right.
People are better. It's almost like that friend who, the more they drink, the better their bowling gets. And the more I drink,
I don't know anyone like that.
Usually it's the more you drink, the more you think you're better.
Right? Yeah.
It's not actually true, but
I'll drink and I'll get terrible. My coach, Kenny Johnson, I used to play with, the more beers he had, the more strikes he got.
Wow, I wish I had that talent in pool. I want that talent in pool. I want to play more, but it just doesn't get it.
Are you telling me if I walk into a pool hall and I see a bunch of scratched up tables, they go, Stephanie played there last night?
Yeah, definitely.
Up to the end of the stick.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to use that side. You didn't know that?
Well, what about silencers? There's a.
Oh yes, I wanted to ask about silencers and pillows. They always
use a potato and they put a pillow. The pillow thing is ridiculous. Like, I think that's so ridiculous.
So, that guy that was like shooting into the swimming pool, that I was telling you about. I don't talk to him anymore, right?
Don't tell me he tried this also.
So I've learned a lot, but many years ago, I applied for my first purchase of a suppressor and I was denied. I was put into a delayed status because I didn't put the suffix on my 4473, which is the paperwork you fill out to legally purchase a firearm. I didn't put William Ernest McGinty III. I just put William Ernest McGinty. I was so excited that I forgot to put my suffix in there. And you know what? In the world of legal firearm purchasing, if you don't fill out your paperwork perfectly, you will be put in a delayed status, or depending on the mood of that gun owner, the gun shop owner that day, he could just go, you know what? I don't feel it. This kid couldn't even fill out his paperwork. I'm just going to wait before I call it in. So here's the thing. I went home, and the way I am, I thought, well, I mean, come on, someone made the suppressor. Like, surely I could figure out how they're made. So I started designing one for an air gun, and I used a sprinkler as the housing. I used nylon baffles from Ace Hardware. And I started to just understand how you needed to create volume for that pressure to go somewhere. Later on, after I figured it out, I destroyed a few attempts at, a manufacturing one, and air guns are pretty easy. There's a totally different PSI rating with that being discharged as opposed to a firearm, like a powder burning discharge. But what's cool is now you're talking hearing safe. If you complement it with subsonic rounds, which Stephanie, a subsonic round is going to be below 1,000 feet per second. So it's not traveling fast enough to make a lot of noise, but it's also not hitting very hard because of that. You do have more gases that come back through the weapon system because now you've attached a muzzle device that directs some of it back. Now I have a question. Can I present a weapon like on camera here?
I don't know.
Can I show you guys a gun? You could say no.
No, you can't.
Okay. This is my EDC.
You're not promoting and telling people to do things.
So I'm unloading. We're going to unload.
Good.
Safety first.
Chamber check, mag check. Okay. Now, to the side over here is a brick wall. It's safe. The weapon's unloaded, but I'm going to point it over to this side.
Gotcha.
Just so we can see it. Okay. Here's my light.
That's real?
This is real. Can you see that okay?
Interesting, yes.
Okay, so I use a suppressor for my pistol primarily because I've been around firearms after they've been...
Suppressor, aka silencer. Is that what it is?
No, this is an FN 509. This is a compact pistol set up in a very offensive configuration. I use an optic so that I can acquire my target with both eyes open. This optic is not designed to use batteries. So my reticle is provided by a fiber optic system. So as long as there's light, I have an illuminated optic. I run an extended mag because I don't carry extra magazines on me. I usually have my cell phone in my pocket or car keys. And this suppressor specifically is made up of some rare earth materials that are all welded together. So it's very, very safe and modular. My light system is underneath it. I can toggle it by pushing on the back.
And that gives him the ability to not have to have a pistol in one hand and a flashlight in the other.
Exactly. And you want to use that other hand to either secure someone that you're trying to keep safe, open a car door, call it in on your cell phone. Hey, I've got a situation, communication, right, John? So now suppressors have become a lot easier to obtain. If you can buy a gun legally and your background check clears, you can buy a suppressor. The wait time is 3 to 5 months, depending on the state you live in. You definitely want to look carefully into those regulations and crossing state lines with this class 3 item, because this is a tax stamped component. It's something that the ATF and the FBI have to approve before you can even have it in your possession. And it has to go everywhere with you. Your paperwork has to come with it, depending on how you have it set up in your trust, with who the beneficiaries are, like family members or friends that also pass the same background check as well. I'm a huge fan of them. I love them for training and practical usage, because now I don't have to worry about remembering to put my ear protection in. And it's fun. It's just nice to not have a huge pop, when you're trying to learn something. And there's a lot to learn about firearms. I'm a huge fan of cannons. Yeah, that's definitely something I support greatly. I think everyone who can buy a gun should look into making it hearing safe.
And you know what? This also don't have I want you to, I know this is going more on handling of guns, not movies, but I always like to bring this up when I talk about guns and I talk about gun responsibility, is don't have a false sense of security just because you have a gun, right? If someone's going to rob you and they've got the drop on you, give them your wallet. This isn't the movies.
Yeah.
You're not Quick Draw McGraw.
Right.
I have a friend who didn't listen to that advice and died.
Oh my God.
Him and his girlfriend were getting robbed at the movie, and he went for his gun and got shot. And I always explain to people, when someone pulls a gun on you to rob you, they have an intent to rob you. Half the time, most of the time, they don't even want to shoot you, but they're going to shoot you if they have to, right?
Sure.
Your brain is on going to the movies. You're not thinking about a gunfight.
Yeah.
Right.
Your brain is going, and so now you're trying to switch from that to that, and a lot of people get that false sense of security, and it's like, no. If you wouldn't do it if you have a gun, don't do it because you have one, because it may not work out for you.
Well said. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Definitely good advice for sure. I love that, because
Everybody thinks you're John Wick.
we want to keep everybody safe.
Yes.
So with that, I just wanted to kind of wrap up and maybe continue this at some point, because I feel like there's so much to talk about. I also wanted to talk about guns in cartoons, but we'll maybe next time, like the old Elmer Fudd and stuff like that. There's so many.
Like the little flag that pops out and says "bang."
Oh yeah, love it.
Daffy Duck gets his bill blown around halfway.
Yes, right.
I love it.
Back and everything's okay. Because a shotgun to the face doesn't really affect you that much. Right?
Yeah, it just makes you.
Love it. So Garrick, guns talk about our characters. They give historical context, and they depict what real life. And so they are necessary and fascinating. And I thank you so much for kind of putting it in perspective in real life, because, we're watching and we watch all these Criminal Minds, Law and Order, and we watch all these gunfights on TV all the time and in movies. And it's interesting to know what's real and what's not. So thank you so much.
You got to discern the difference. Hey, I don't know what everybody thinks, but you're not going to be Scarface. You can't, just because you put your face in a pile of cocaine doesn't mean you're going to take 95 rounds.
Come on, I was sure it would.
But if I take enough drugs, though.
Well, PCP. But don't do that, kids. Okay, so things we learned today. Be responsible with your guns. Don't try to make a homemade silencer. Don't go shooting up your neighbor's pool. Okay? Don't do drugs. Those are the things we learned today.
Definitely. Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Nice seeing you, Will. Nice seeing you, John.
Hey, so the Scientology thing in Long Island's this weekend. I'll see you Saturday, right?
Yes, we're going to
Okay.
go to the Scientology. Yes, you're going to be attached to an e-meter, and you're going to disclose all of your deepest, darkest secrets and all the demons that are affecting you. We'll talk more about that another time.
Tell you what, y'all won't find my black ass there.